The Ag Tribes Report is brought to you by Legacy Interviews, a video service that captures people as they really are, so the future knows who they really were. Listen to Legacy Interviews guests Dan and Kathy Brooks on the unexpected experience they had sharing stories from their lives.
I learned a lot about you that I didn't know.
Oh. Oops.
Oh my goodness. All the things about his youth. He doesn't talk a lot about it.
And if somebody were on the fence about doing this, what would you tell them?
Don't overthink it. Just do it. Because we were really nervous about coming. I wished I would have known more about my mom and dad. And you've said that too, that you wish you would have known more about your family history. Wow. I had no idea.
Welcome to the Ag Tribes Report, a breakdown of the top stories affecting the culture of agriculture, with your host, Vance Crowe. The report begins in 3, 2, 1. Let's begin.
Welcome to the Ag Tribes Report. I'm your host, Vance Crowe. Each week, I bring on a new co-host that represents one of the many ag tribes that collectively make up U.S. and Canadian agriculture. And this week, we have Ryan Cooper, a startup farmer that is working to build community into his rural life. Ryan has both pasture land and operates a business called Milkmen Co-op that sources food from local farms, ranches, homesteads, gardens, and kitchens. And together with his community, shares the burden of finding high-quality food for their families. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
How is the business going right now?
Good. It's a good time to be starting a small regenerative food distribution business.
Yeah, why is it such a good time? Seems like culture is changing in that way.
Yeah, real fast. I hear a lot of people talking about what's our food that I never thought would talk about it before. Probably political climate. A lot of it's conversation at a high level. RFK is probably helping a lot of that.
Yeah, I think the Maha movement's a big one. And then like we're going to talk about this week, Thomas Massie is kicking stuff up. So we are going to this week talk about Thomas Massie's post on X about ethanol mandates making food more expensive. We'll look at the USDA's $1 billion pledge to fight avian flu off. We'll also talk about FFA Super Officer Secretary Brooke Rollins taking a lot of hours to do photo ops, but not much else. And we'll discuss Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick floating the idea of using the post office for the census. This is a bold idea that could shake up rural agricultural representation. So we're going to do all of this. We're going to talk about the Bitcoin land price report. We're going to hear Ryan's take on the Peter Thiel paradox and his worthy adversary. And we're going to do all that in just 30 minutes. So let's get started. First up, Thomas Massie kicked a hornet's nest when he decided to go after ethanol. On February 25th, Massie took to X to post his thoughts on renewable fuel standards that require ethanol to be blended into gasoline. Quote, using corn to make fuel increases the price of food. This is not disputed, yet some Republicans are insisting on keeping costly ethanol provisions in the Democrat New Deal in Republican budget reconciliation plan. He later posted a write-up from the AI system Grok on the question, do ethanol subsidies and mandates increase food prices? And Grok, after a long explanation, summarized it with, yeah, ethanol mandates and subsidies generally nudge food prices up. How much depends on harvest, markets, policy tweaks. Without them, corn might stay cheaper, but gas prices would climb until oil steps in. So, Ryan, this was a huge fight on X. It brought in the idea of DDGs and their importance in the feedlot system. What do you think? Are ethanol mandates making food more expensive?
Obviously, they're making food more expensive. Anytime you have competition in the market, it's going to make things more expensive. Maybe there's a sense for that, but certainly that.
Yeah, it seems like when you say all of the gasoline in all of these different states are going to be blended up to 15% into ethanol, that of course is going to do that. You're making so much more demand. I've actually talked to a lot of farmers during their legacy interviews when they say, actually, it was when we started, the ethanol plants being built and all of that going into the system, it made it so corn prices were buoyed. Do you see? Can you steelman ethanol at all? Can you find a good reason why we should be adding it into our gasoline?
I can't. I haven't spent a lot of time trying to, though. We've had some conversations in the past, you and I, about having farmers grow fuel versus food. It doesn't seem to work in the long run. I do understand we've got a whole industry that's built on this at this point, and it's going to be very difficult to put any industry on a new path. There's going to be struggles.
Yeah, I mean, if I were going to steelman it, I think one of my buddies would like to say, like, there's got to be some additives to it. There's certain amounts of smog that we get out by being able to add ethanol in. There's certain things that it does to the engines that are, while people say it's all corrosive, he'll talk about how there's actually some benefits to it. But I mean, to me, the reason that that this system does not free float on its own is that if the government wasn't there mandating it, it wouldn't have happened. And now there are people that'll come out and say, well, actually, now that ethanol is so ubiquitous, all of the infrastructure has been built. Even if the mandates came off, the gas companies would continue to want to use ethanol in this way. I sense that is not the case. I think that there would be a lot more defectors if there weren't the government intervention there.
Yeah, I think so. If people stop getting paid to do something, typically most of them stop doing it. And I think that's what this really comes down to, is you're recruiting a shrinking community of farmers to grow something that isn't being consumed by their communities or their country.
All right, there was a whole lot of discussion there. People talked about how even though it's the corn is being used for ethanol, it gets turned into DDGs, the dried distillers grains, which then can be put into the feedlot system. And there was a lot of talk about what the conversion is, and because now you're able to feed these cattle with this much more refined system. Any thoughts on that, feeding cattle DDGs?
I'm probably not deep enough down the finishing rabbit hole to be really educated on it. I know there's a lot of different ways people like their cows raised. There's more efficient ways to raise cows in a huge setting, and that's probably what's really efficient about those type of products, I would think.
All right, well, let's head to the next story. Talk about efficiency. The egg industry is about to get $1 billion. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is allocating up to $1 billion to combat the ongoing outbreak of avian influenza, H5N1. This funding, announced on the 26th, aims to address the severe impact of the virus, which affected over 160 million birds, primarily poultry, like hens, since 22. The outbreak has led to significant egg shortages and driven egg prices to record highs, prompting urgent action. The USDA plan includes several initiatives, including enhancing biosecurity measures on poultry farms with up to $500 million to prevent further spread, providing $400 million in financing relief to farmers who have lost their flocks, and increasing egg imports while reducing exports to stabilize domestic supply. Ryan, what is your take? Is $1 billion going to stop this pandemic, and is it the right direction to go?
I don't think it's enough. I think we need a lot more. We need to print a lot more money to rain it down on this market. I'm pretty consistent. I don't like market manipulation, and I think every market is heavily manipulated. So if we're going to back off with the manipulation, it's going to be painful. It's going to hurt. I get really weirded out seeing a bunch of money getting dumped into vaccines. I'm more of the let things progress naturally try, probably. What do you think, Vance? I mean, is this a real problem? You got people on one side saying it's a total joke. You got people on one side saying, we need to close down everybody's parks so that migratory birds don't spread it.
There's certainly avian flu is a real thing. And but the funny thing is, so I know 3 egg producers, and all 3 have not been impacted by this. And all of them say, yeah, it's pretty serious, but it's not gotten us. On the other hand, when you talk to people that are hunters, I've known people that were out doing some waterfowl hunting, and they said this is terrible. When you would spot dead birds, there'd be like hundreds of them everywhere. Mm-hmm. So it's clearly an issue. But I'm with you. Like, I can't imagine that you can rain more money on this and have it come out okay. It also seems to me that if Doge is trying to cut out employees and all sorts of waste and fraud and manipulation, I mean, dropping $1 billion into this industry means that they got to go make more cuts somewhere else. It seems like it's kind of disjointed from the work that the government's trying to tell us they're into right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're actually going to reduce spending. I think a lot more money is coming. I think it's kind of a false narrative that inflation is going to, be brought under control. We've got $36 trillion worth of debt. I think a third of it needs to be refinanced real soon. We're going to print a lot of money. We're going to drive inflation. We're going to devalue the dollar. I think that's what this is. I think we could probably expect to see a lot more of ridiculous spending in your and my opinions.
Yeah, I mean, and the question is, like, should they even be doing it? If money was actually something that would stop this, what is $500 million going to do? I know that the government has had a pretty heavy hand in killing off birds. So they've said, like, hey, there was a bird, an outbreak, I think, a mile or two from here. So we're going to cull other birds that are not related to that farm. And I don't know if that's really smart biosecurity or what you need when you have such intensive chicken raising. But it also does seem like if the government comes along and says, we're killing all your birds, even though they're healthy, somebody probably needs to be compensated for that. But, we're just dumping more money into those systems. So it just seems like pretty out of balance.
Yeah, it's just layered Band-Aid, isn't it? The government showing up and trying to make things better after they killed their flock. A little hard to defend, but understandable.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's the other case. There's another group of people out there that are saying, hey, actually, the way we get through this pandemic is we allow survival of the fittest. There's no amount of money you're going to be able to stop here. If these birds don't have immunity inside of these hen houses, maybe what you should do is just let it rip through the country, and then whoever is still surviving will be able to rebuild the flock from, and then you won't have to worry about vaccines and huge amounts of money. Do you think that's an actual possible solution throughout this problem?
I mean, I think it's a possible solution. I don't think it's a probable one. I think anytime the government can come up with a reason to get their hands involved, they will. And I think this is just going to be the same they played over and over again.
And you're still cynical, even though the Trump administration's in there.
Dude, where's the Epstein list? I'm a little cynical. I wasn't cynical yesterday. I was probably less cynical the day before. I'm becoming more and more cynical as days go by. I voted for this team. I'm getting some of the things I voted for. But we're still going to get more of this. I think we're about to talk about that more, aren't we?
Yeah, so up next, speaking of cynical, what does Secretary Brooke Rollins do all day? This week, Secretary of Ag Brooke Rollins posted photos on X of another meet and greet. This time she was checking out the biosecurity measures of an egg-laying facility. Quote, it was important for me to see firsthand an egg-laying farm facility implementing strong biosecurity measures. We have lots of work to do as we combat avian flu, help our poultry industry recover, and bring the price of eggs down for all Americans. More to come midweek on this. So as I look at Secretary Rollins, I see somebody that is going around doing what typically a national FFA officer does, where they show up, they smile, there's a lot of photos, they make a big pomp and circumstance, but it doesn't seem like this ag secretary is getting her hands dirty, trying to make changes. Doesn't seem like the USDA is being rooted out of all of its, non-productive workers. What do you think, Ryan? Is it just me, or is this position seeming like the FFA super officer?
I'm actually going to turn this around on you because I haven't followed Brooke Rollins a whole lot. When she was named Secretary of the USDA, I did a little bit of digging and quickly realized she wasn't the pick that I wanted, and I kind of ignored her past couple of weeks. What would you like to see out of a USDA secretary in the first week or two?
Well, I mean, it's my strong belief that the USDA is probably 80% too large. And I know when I say that, there are people that are like, well, they run programs that we need, and there's all these conservation stuff and contracts that need to come out. All right, well, I think that the way that we should sort this out is move the USDA to Kearney, Nebraska, make it so that the only people that are allowed to work there are willing to live in a city that doesn't have any nightlife, is not connected to the rest of the bureaucracy. And then whatever programs are needed in order to be able to coordinate some larger agricultural system, I would have the minimal amount of USDA that you could have. So for me, the person in there is a slash and burn. We're going to, like, whatever we need to do to keep the system going is what we're going to do, but absolutely no more.
Yeah. And there was a lot of names that were getting floated out there for Secretary of USDA before her pick. What were the big promises you were excited about?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really. There was a little bit of time where RFK was being talked about as being head of the USDA, and I don't love that. I think that that's like it may be too much rocking the boat. But then outside of that, there was nobody that I was sitting there being like, yeah, that'd be a person I think that will execute this. I think what we have now is basically a Trump loyalist that is just waiting to be told what we should do next in the USDA.
Yeah. You'd like some action.
All right. Headline number 4, the Commerce Department may utilize the post office for census. We're going to play a quick clip here. This is Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick floating an extraordinary idea that I think could impact agriculture in a pretty big way.
I'm sitting with the president, and the costs of the post office are like it loses $7 billion. And he said, can you do something with it? And I said, sure. So I saw him the next day, he goes, okay, what do you got? He gives me the whole 24 hours to figure it out. And I said, well, the Commerce Department does the census. And we spend $40 billion every 10 years doing the census. And that means we hire 625,000 people. And they go and they rent cars and gas and you pay them food. And you know what they do? They go to every household in America and count the people. What department do we already have that already employs 625,000 people? It's got cars, already has gas, goes to every household. Can you imagine saying to your postman, can you count the people in the house? What day could he do the census? Monday? Could he double check it on Tuesday? How about Wednesday? He goes every day. So we can only save $40 billion or $4 billion a year, and we'll do a better job. And you know what else we can do with the post office? They can go to your house when you have a baby and give you the form for Social Security. And the 20,000 Social Security offices that we have, we just don't need them. We actually can do real customer service. Go right to your house. Someone died, here's the forms, you can fill it out, I'll bring them to your house. Customer service, why? Because we've got those people. Let's use the assets of the government to make us better and save us money.
What do you think of that idea, Ryan? Is that a plausible idea? Do you want the post office to take over census responsibilities?
I think it's a great idea. I don't know what else they're doing. It seems like there's a lot of huge agencies that were intended to do a thing, and they don't do that anymore, or at least don't do it the way it was originally intended. And I don't know what we're going to do with those agencies, except maybe find something for them to do in the new world. I don't know what else we're going to do with the postal service. I'm in rural here. I would have done something postal. I mean, if my life depended on it, there's no way. I don't know what your experience with U.S. Postal is.
Yeah, it's gotten worse and worse. There was I've gotten wedding invitations like weeks afterwards. Even when I get something from the IRS, it takes weeks longer. They'll put it on that it came on this date, and it's gotten so much later. I mean, for what all I'm concerned about with the post office is you're not allowed to turn the post office off. So we pay tax dollars to have most of what gets sent to me is junk mail that I'm not allowed to turn off, which I hate. So if there's any way to make the post office more valuable, then I'm all for it. I don't know that I necessarily like the post office now counting people in my house. Just the image of it itself is not my favorite, but cut out Social Security, cut out census people. I'm loving the sounds of that.
Yeah, I have a friend who actually he runs a postal service out here. They abandoned the office. They they asked the man who owned the building to continue running it, and it's just been a terrible experience for them. They're exactly how you imagine dealing with some federal bureaucracy.
Well, I'm getting notes that we're getting feedback on your microphone. I think it's something through my end here, but I apologize. So I am hearing your notes, guys, about that. All right, thank you for the stories. These are the stories that we're doing on the Ag Tribes Report. If you have stories that you think we should cover, you can always send them to me on X at Vance Crow. I got a bunch of stories this week from you all, or you can always send it to Vance at legacyinterviews.com. All right, now we're going to move on to the Bitcoin land price report. Bitcoin went on sale this week. Oh my, oh my. It is a glorious time for Bitcoin believers because there's nothing quite as good as a long-term holder watching the price drop because it doesn't hurt. You're not planning on selling, and you're shaking out all the soft hands and all the tourists. And the only people that benefit from this price action are the ones that are just are comfortable with the price going down and then deciding to buy when there's a buying opportunity like this. So last week, Bitcoin was at 98,400, and this week we are sitting at a very cool $84,369, which is down 14%. Ryan, I know you're a Bitcoin guy. What did it feel like as the price dropped down 14%?
I didn't know. I know that's a little bit cliche if you hung out with some Bitcoiners. I really don't watch it. I work very hard, 7 days a week usually, and I save my money in Bitcoin, and I'll continue to do that wherever it's at.
And normally we ask people, what is an acre of land cost in your county?
Yeah. I did a little bit of research. 10 grand is where everything's getting listed at right now for good ground. And you can probably find some for like eight, but it's
okay.
Expensive. I'm right south of St. Louis, so people really like farming here.
So it sounds like what is that then? You could buy with 1 Bitcoin, you could buy 8.4 acres of good high quality ground where you're at. How does that sit with you?
8 acres of ground for a Bitcoin?
Yeah.
I honestly haven't thought of it that way. It seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah. I think right now I'd rather have the Bitcoin.
Well, I would too. I would too. At least right now.
Yeah, that's not always. I just think that the price appreciation is going to go up. Last Friday on X, I went out and asked, how many Satoshis does it cost for a dozen eggs? And so for anybody that doesn't know, a Satoshi is the smallest unit of a Bitcoin. It is 0.0000001 Bitcoin because there's 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin. So we were asking people, how much does a dozen eggs cost in Satoshis? And what is that for you guys on the Milkmen Co-op? How many Satoshis for a dozen eggs?
14,000 Satoshis, dozen eggs. Yeah.
And is that a pretty stable price?
Yeah, we do delivery, and so we're probably going to have to raise it, honestly, if eggs continue to go up. Because right now we're delivering farm fresh eggs cheaper than you can cheaper than you can buy them. But yeah, we lock it in, and we do a lot of our sales in Bitcoin. Probably about 40 to 50% of it we sell to a lot of Bitcoiners. They're very intentional about where they get their food, and we've really tapped that market. And so we lock in our Satoshi prices.
Well, that's great. Yeah, everybody was tossing in on how many Satoshis like it would cost you to buy a dozen eggs, and I think that Rob Long came in with, I think it was 12,000. And so, do
you think the $1 billion getting pumped into the egg industry will affect the Satoshi price of eggs?
I don't know. I mean, I think $1 billion going into that is going to just create a giant bubble. It's going to create all sorts of incentives for people not. I mean, I think there's a bunch of people building chicken barns right now. There's a ton of egg production going into the market right now. But with that much money coming in, they're going to way overshoot. And you're going to have so much production, it's going to drop the price way down when you have so many more eggs available. And I think that this is just another reason why the government should stay as far away from messing around with commodity prices is possible because all they do is create bubbles. It's not possible for them to do anything other than create bubbles.
Yeah, especially in food. Especially in food, people. Come on. Leave us alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we could have really rough egg prices for a while there, but the cure for high prices is high prices. And as soon as the government starts throwing money around, there's going to be all kinds of people that do whatever they can to get that money as fast as they can. And it won't be high quality production. It'll be speed to production.
Yeah.
All right, now we're moving on to the Peter Thiel paradox. This is where I ask Ryan, what is one thing that you believe that almost nobody in your tribe agrees with you on?
Yeah. Circling around a little bit to us being Bitcoiners, I've struggled with this for a couple of years to really represent this, but I really believe that we're exponentially getting better and better at producing everything we need and eat and consume. And I think we're exponentially getting poorer at the same time. And I don't think we really understand that well. I think that we measure inflation, but the way I paint this picture is if you imagine like the 1960s, a brand new vehicle cost about $5,000. I actually pulled this from a book called Superabundance, which is a great read. Now a brand new vehicle, top line vehicle, would cost about $100,000. And I really believe that a brand new car in 2025 should be about $600. And it's so radical. I mean, everybody thinks I'm crazy when I say it, but if you think about that $5,000 vehicle in the 60s, and you consider every year we're getting better at mining our resources, producing our parts, assembling our parts, we're developing skills. We should consistently be more and more efficient at delivering the end product, which we have been. We have been, for the past 80 years when things have gotten better and better and better. And yet we pay $100,000 for a vehicle. And so I really want people to think about that and think about, like, there was a huge amount of productivity that we as a society developed since the 60s, and it's all been stolen from us. It's all been stolen from us. The whole delta between a $600 car in 2025 and a $100,000 car, all of that's been stolen to do all those projects that you were talking about a little bit. And I think if we really grasped that, we would be much less tolerant of a lot of the monetary nonsense that gets played with our economy.
Yeah, so I think you've done quite well here. If you'd have framed it, I think a new car, top of the line, should be $600. I would have immediately disagreed with you, but I mean, I 100% follow your case on the way the government has been able to pay for all these things that they want, that they didn't want to have to tax us for, was they just kept printing more and more money. And all that did was make things that should have been getting cheaper get way, way more expensive. So I totally agree with your argument here. I mean, I think it's a great example. And imagine living in a world where things got dramatically cheaper like that.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. You have to spend like thousands of hours imagining that world because we're so brainwashed that this is the world we exist in. But it really is a strange, manipulated economy that we're in. And those numbers came from this book, again, Superabundance. I highly recommend it. And it really lays out this theory that things should have just been, we should be so wealthy by now. All of the advancements that we've collectively come about using free markets. Where did it all go?
All right. Well, I'm going to give you a solid 7.5. It was good. I like the idea, but I mean, you kind of already knew that I was going to get in on the anti-inflation riff. So we're going to keep going now with the final section. This is where I ask Ryan about his worthy adversary. Who is one person that you respect, but you strongly disagree with?
Dr. Kyle Gibbs is the new superintendent of our school district here in Farmington, Missouri. And I met with Dr. Kyle this morning. They're working to raise our property taxes to pay for some more programs, etc. And I'm pretty opposed to it. I'm a homeschooling dad. I got kids in the school district. I pay property taxes, but I don't use any of these programs. And it seems like they always want to offer more and more programs, which I respect, and I'm learning. My dad keeps telling me work to understand and not so much be understood. And I go into a lot of these meetings very frustrated, like, hey, it's not complicated. My position is just that we shouldn't raise taxes. That's it. We just shouldn't raise taxes. And the nuance comes from the other end, and I have to take a lot of time and really try to understand that. I do think a lot of these decisions get made out of good intentions. You know, they do believe that this is the best way to support our community. I could apply this to a whole bunch of our conversations tonight, but at the end of the day, it shouldn't be allowed. The government shouldn't be allowed to reallocate resources from its local economy. I think it's wrong. I think it's really immoral.
And so the superintendent that you're dealing with, he's a person of respect?
Well, he seems to be. He doesn't seem to be a terrible person. You know, he seems to be hardworking. He seems to really care. You spend time talking to these people and you realize, like, I really believe they think I really believe they think that America is the American government providing services to its citizens, you know, and you realize that, and it's very difficult to even really have a conversation, let alone like get on the same page. So I can still respect him, and I respect, I think, his energies into the community. You know, he puts them there out of a good place, but we certainly cannot raise property taxes. We can't. It's 2025. Honestly, I thought it was a joke when I first heard it. I mean, can you imagine being the guy who had just gotten a new job and be like, hey, we should raise property taxes this year, 2025, in this climate, you know?
Yeah, it is quite an assertion for somebody to say that. I think that because you own more things, we should take more money from you. Like it's bizarre. But one of the
more things, not even more things. Like I'm a poor homeschooling dad farmer guy. You know, I mean, I pay little property taxes on my, you know, meager empire here. I'm not making $200,000 a year as a superintendent of a rural school district. You know, I'm not driving the nice car. I pull up to those things with like hay on the back of the truck. I'm trying to get into this meeting at 8:30 on a Thursday. It's not even envy. That's the weird thing, is you think like, oh, they think, you know, you have more than me. I should be able to take some of that and help some special needs kids. It's just, they're communists, Vance. They're communists. They think it's the collective. Like, hey, we're all going to put into the pot and it's going to better us all. Can you respect communists? I don't know. I do.
I mean, I think I heard, I think Tucker Carlson of all people said this. He was saying, respect is when you encounter somebody that can do something that you can't do. And that's when you're like, hey, I got to respect that guy. He knows how to do something I struggle with. So I wonder, does the superintendent meet that definition for you?
Well, he's a worthy adversary, in so much that I am going to be adversarial towards him trying to raise taxes on my population, and I will be respectful. But I guess that's as far down the respect rabbit hole I could probably go. I don't know him personally. Maybe we'll get a chance to eat a meal together.
Well, I love it. Good choice. One of the things that Ryan does such a good job of is staying involved in his community. And if you ever see him pop up on X, some mornings he'll hop on there and he'll talk about how he's engaged in his community. And I have to say, it makes me be a better community member. It makes me want to, you know, get involved, show up at things, read the stuff that gets sent in the mail to me. And I think it's really amazing. So if people wanted to learn more about you and the Milkmen Co-op, where would you send them?
Yeah, milkmancoop.com or find me on X, Ryan Cooper 116.
Is that because there were 115 people before you?
No, this is District 116, and I waged a losing political battle for state rep this past year, and that's still my handle. I don't want to change it again.
All right. Well, thank you, Ryan, for coming on. If you've been listening, then if you want to support the show, there's a couple of great ways to do it. One is to check out Legacy Interviews. This is where I sit down to record individuals and couples telling their life stories so that future generations have the opportunity to know where they came from. Today, I sat down with an absolutely wonderful couple from Michigan who talked all about their values, how they raised their sons, what they loved about their daughter-in-laws, and what it was like to be grandparents. It was a truly magnificent day. And if you would like to make sure your parents or grandparents are captured, go to legacyinterviews.com to find out more. Also, if Ryan and I have made you curious about Bitcoin, I'm always encouraging people to go out and get a Lightning wallet. You can do that, and if you send me a Lightning invoice, I will send you. Now we are down to 125 sats. So many people took me up on the 250 sats, so I will send you 125 Satoshis. And if you're looking for what is a good wallet to get, the River app, which is the group that's been sponsoring the podcast, you can go to river.com and download the app and send me your Lightning wallet. I will also include a link to River in the show notes. So that way, whether you're buying them on an exchange or you're just getting that Lightning invoice, so I'll send you 125 sats. It's a great way to support the show. All right, that is going to do it. We will be back next week, probably with a Canadian, because I think the tariff wars are about to heat up. So thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on. And as always, feel free to disagree.